hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. If it's your first time here with us on Amazon, welcome. And make sure you guys hit that follow button so you guys know we're in a countdown to Prime next week. So we have programming literally both days, July 16th and 17th, all throughout the day. I don't want you guys to miss anything. So you'll find the follow button either here in this corner or down below. You also will find the paperback and Kindle edition of our next guest. We're excited to welcome back my friend, author, motivational speaker, media personality, Dawn Marie Westmoreland. We're going to talk to her about this book that is so powerful and I think so timely for all of us as we're kind of looking at the world. Stand Up to Workplace Bullying and Discrimination. It is a book that she has been able to write. It's experiences she's been able to live, and she's able to share that with all of you, including with resources. We are simulcasting our broadcast, so we want to welcome those tuning in on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and on Instagram. Glad you all could be with us. I see you guys already coming in over there on Instagram. Hello to you, Naheed, joining us from California. Cheryl, hello to you. Good to be able to see you. Susan, hello to you. Glad you could join us as well. If you guys have any questions or comments for Dawn, she is the go-to person. So she's the perfect person for this topic to talk about. But Dawn, my friend, thank you so much for being back with us.
Cyrus, it's always a blast to be with you. Thank you.
Well, so much for us to talk about. And I should say, there's a saying, Dawn, that timing really is everything, right? And you and I have had, it seems like it was Prime either a year or two ago, we had a chat on Amazon about your book. But I feel like the reason why I wanted to have you back, I feel like it's so timely right now, Dawn, because of everything we're seeing, not only in the workplace that we normally talk about, which may be the office, right? Or, someone who may work at an establishment, but in the entertainment industry where I'm spending more time these days, this is a topic that now documentaries are being made of. People are really talking about it. What has it been like for you, Dawn, as someone who's lived this, to see how people are talking about discrimination and bullying in the workplace?
Wow, that's a lot to talk about, Cyrus. I wrote the book because, I stood up to the second largest federal agency in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And because of discrimination, bullying, nepotism, racial discrimination. And the short story is, I lost all my income when they turned off my paycheck. I lost my home, lost about 80% of my items. And I had a successful ending. We'll leave the middle out, right? They can read a book if they want or call me and I'll tell them. But the thing is that it was very hard on me and I lost so much for doing the right thing, standing up to, racial discrimination at the time. And my background now is 31 years of HR. So, I knew it was wrong. And I knew there was a problem in the workplace. And, when I spoke up about the fact there were only 5 Black employees out of 550 white folks in our agency, I got a lot of kickback. I caught heck,
Yeah.
And so they retaliated on me and it got really, really extreme. And I thought, I don't want anybody ever, ever, ever to go through this because most people don't know what to do these days. But I did. And I persevered and I made it through there.
Dawn, there's so much that we can talk about, and I'm so glad, again, you just don't know how much I was excited about this chat because I feel like I'm in a different place. I think my audience is in a different place.
Yeah.
You definitely have been so empowered in your work, as I mentioned, as a media personality yourself, would let our audience know how to find you there, but also as an author. There are so many people, Dawn, who would have said, you know what, that has nothing to do with me. I'm just going to, hey, that's just the world we live in, right? Hey, that has nothing to do with me. I feel bad for what's happening with that person. I feel bad that they're missing out on this opportunity, but I don't want to get involved. I don't want anything. There are people who feel that way. What is it that made you take the other direction? And that being, hey, this isn't right. I have to say something. What made you say that?
Oh my goodness, Cyrus. I come from a humanitarian family.
Mm-hmm.
And, the garbage men back in the day used to come and get us in North Florida in the country. And I grew up in the second poorest county in Florida. They came in and I was like a 10-year-old making fried bologna sandwiches and chicken noodle soup I would stir up. So I grew up as a humanitarian, watching out for other people. My parents were like that. And then I was in the Air Force 20 years. I've now been retired 19. I was the first sergeant. I've always been in the people business, so I really deeply care. My heart goes out to people that are being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So I couldn't stand by and say, oh, that's okay. Just hire more white people. And, it don't matter that, you only have 5 Black employees and hardly any other race. That's wrong. I felt like I've got to say something. And it's probably part of my DNA.
And it's something I think that a lot of people can relate to, Dawn, and there are other people that are out there too. I mean, I was raised the same way, right? You don't, you don't choose to be blind when you know things are not going the right way. But what I love about this book, and this is why I invite everyone. In fact, Dawn is running a special right now on the book, and I see you guys already getting the Kindle edition. It's $9.99 there, or you can get the paperback like I have. It's on sale right now for $12.99. But the book, Stand Up to Workplace Bullying and Discrimination, is not just addressing those issues. The thing that I love is that if you've ever looked for a resource, you've ever looked for instruction, you ever looked for guidance as to what to do, Dawn gives you that as well. So, Dawn, I want to talk about the makeup of the book, because yes, you do tell a bit of your own story and own experience and the retaliation that you face, but you also give the resources. You also give the tips. I'm going to go into some of those that we haven't talked about on this program before. How did you decide how you wanted to structure the book, Stand Up to Workplace Bullying and Discrimination?
Well, I have to give just a quick backstory, Cyrus. One of the creators of Homeland Security reached out and wanted to meet me because he was just amazed at what I'd been through and how I stood up, to the second largest federal agency. And then other people, whistleblowers, if you want to call them, started reaching out to me, and they're like, I'm being harassed, I'm being bullied, I'm being discriminated, and we don't know what to do. And I was like, well, my God, I got through this. And sometimes you're learning as you go, and that's how I am. I jump in. I mean, I don't care if I don't know how to do it. I just jump in and learn. And so I had a great success at the very end. So I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to capture all of this and make it so easy to understand and so comprehensive and step by step that anybody, Cyrus, could read it and get help from it, whether they're being bullied, which is not illegal in the workplace, or discriminated, protected class discriminated, which is illegal. And then what do? How do they document it? My documentation was what sold it. I mean, it was pure documentation, but there's a way you have to document. And people often say, oh, I'm just going to write in a little black book. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to have something concrete. So that's what I put into the book, because I wanted people to know how to stand up to workplace bullying and discrimination, step by step. I didn't leave much out.
Yeah, and to that point, Donna, and I want to say for our audience, and again, if you guys have any questions or comments, I see you guys coming on over there on YouTube. If you guys have any questions or comments for Dawn, make sure to put those in the comment section. We do have the chat open. To that point, you give some great advice. And again, some of this, we're having this conversation we've never talked about before. Hey, man, it's well good to be able to see you over there on the Facebook side. He says hello to you as well, Dawn. So I want to talk about the proper procedure. And you just brought up a really good point, and that is about documentation. One of the things that Dawn addresses in the book, because a lot of times, especially in today's world, we live in a time that's different than even 10 years ago, Dawn, where if before we saw something, maybe someone would write a letter. Nowadays, they're posting something on social media, or they're going to the media. You have guidelines that you give for that in the book, well, the media aspect in particular, about make sure you have your facts straight. Why is it so important for us, before we take such a public step about addressing these things, that we make sure we have those ducks in order and have the facts outlined as you were just talking about?
Well, it's really important. If you can get things settled out of court, out of litigation, hey, that's wonderful. But sometimes you have to get litigation involved. And I did. I involved the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So you can't have she said, he said. You have to have proof. And that's why, in the book, I talk a lot about email documentation, because somebody cannot deny something that they wrote in email. And I really break it down why it's so important. Because if you have a conversation in closed room with HR or the boss, okay, and you don't have any kind of proof, that you're being discriminated against, you can't take that and use that, with, if you had to see an employment attorney for discrimination. Or, for example, if you were trying to get unemployment because you were fired unfairly, just because you've been fired doesn't mean you're going to get unemployment. They can challenge you. So it's so important to have really, really good documentation, because if you don't have that good documentation, it's sad to say, I've seen people who have lost their homes. I knew a woman in California living in a horse farm, a barn. She was living in a horse stall, actually, because she lost her home because of bullies.
Wow. And so I want to reset real quick, Dawn. Again, this is such a great conversation and so timely. For those who are just tuning in, welcome. We're streaming primarily on Amazon Live. So if you guys are joining us on Amazon, I appreciate you guys being over there. I see some of you are already clicking through, getting the book. This is a great investment and a resource. I'm going to remind you of that a little bit later. But if you're not following us here, we're leading up to Prime coming up July 16th and 17th, where Cyrus Webb Presents is going to have great programming all throughout those 2 days. I'm working with over 200 products we're going to be showcasing, as well as doing author conversations. And also we have 2 hours of book chats too that I'm going to be doing with books like Dawn's. But make sure you guys are hitting that follow button. You see it here in this corner or down below. But you also will see in the carousel, what we call the carousel, this book by Dawn. It's available in paperback and Kindle. The paperback, as you see, is $12.99, or you can get the Kindle for $9.99. It's called Stand Up to Workplace Bullying and Discrimination. Dawn Marie Westmoreland is not only an author, as you just heard her say, she has a background in HR. She's a media personality. She hosts her own radio show, but she's also a speaker. Dawn, I want to talk about, again, for yourself, what it was like for you to share a bit of your own story. Because yes, you talked about, if we see something, the importance of saying something, right? But you also share the consequences were for you. What was that like for you to share your own experience with not only retaliation, but also bullying?
You mean after it happened?
Right.
Share
Exactly.
it with the public?
Right.
Well, I'm very transparent. I like to be very authentic, Cyrus, because that's just who I am.
Right.
And I believe what it does, it frees up other people, because I'm not the only person on this earth that's ever been through trauma or abused or misunderstood. Everybody's had some kind of experience. And when we tell the truth and speak our truth, we're helping other people to loosen up and share their stories, maybe reach out and get help. So I was never embarrassed sharing all the hardships, and there were a lot of hardships I've left out, in the very middle, losing everything. Everything I've ever worked so hard for, losing a very, very nice home, and, having to sell about 80% of my possessions just to get by.
Right.
It was also freeing and healing.
And I want to say hello to you, Vitamin Shop in Brooklyn 241 on Instagram. Glad you could be with us. One thing we've never talked about, Dawn, and Dawn and I have discussed this book before here on Amazon, but also on my radio show. And there you have something really interesting that you wrote, and I actually want to read it, Dawn. I think it's important. It's in the chapter Rest, Recovering, and Healing. There you talk about loving and respecting yourself. I thought this was really interesting. This is what you wrote. What if you could learn to love and respect yourself? The chances are you would have healthier boundaries with others. You may learn how to be an observer instead of an absorber, one who absorbs drama when dealing with antagonists. Learning how to be a non-player in other people's drama is very empowering and liberating. Sometimes the most excellent teachers are the antagonists. And the reason why I thought this was interesting is because a lot of times when people go through something, they internalize it, right? They say,
sure,
this
we all
happened
have
because of me, right? I did something. But how important was it for you in the middle of what you were going through, Dawn, to remember who you were and to remember your own inner power and strength?
Well, I'm going to admit, that there was a time I felt like a victim in it. And that's when I hated myself the most, because I felt victimized. And, I remember looking in a mirror. I was in the hospital because I ended up in the hospital, from all the trauma for a few days. And I remember having an ugly hate fest with myself in this metal mirror. And I was like, where was that strong woman, and And I was strong through it all, but we all have a breaking point. This went on for 20 something months, Cyrus.
Right.
And I don't care who you are and how tough. I've had clients that were Marines, former Marines, that broke down and cried and called me up about their situations. We all have a breaking point.
Right. And I think knowing that that remembering that we're human, I think is so important, right? And I think so many times, Don, and I think all of us go through this, right? We sometimes feel guilty for being human. We feel guilty for not being able to
Yeah,
take it
yeah,
all
yeah,
on, right?
yeah.
And the fact is that's not our responsibility typically. But even if you choose to make a stand, knowing that it's normal for you to have those moments, right? It's normal for you to have those moments of uncertainty. I love the fact you even talk about in the chapter statistics and guidance on workplace bullying and discrimination. You talked about the consequences, some of the things that can happen, loss of finances, that the extreme some people take, wiretapping, right? I mean, the financial disaster that can happen. Hey, Kate, good to be able to see you over there on the Facebook side. And I think what's so great about that, and we see it in the world today, right, Don, that there are people who come forward who talk about what's happening in the entertainment industry, in different industries. We've seen this a lot lately, and people are the victim is attacked. The person who's bringing attention to it is scrutinized. What has that been like for you, especially in the past couple of years, to see how people are coming forward, but also the consequences of that?
Wow. I tell you, you're speaking about celebrities and film and things like that. I mean, I had a film director, a female, beautiful female, that was a prior model, and she was being harassed by all the male directors and the male staff. So nobody's immune from it. And I'm pretty sure they were jealous of her because she was pretty successful, very, very attractive woman and such. More and more people are just, I don't know what it is, more in civil than ever. And there's no reason for it. I mean, if there was ever a time to come together and tolerate people and be kind to people and just, be empathetic to their needs, especially, if they're disabled or older or pregnant. I mean, there's so many situations where people need just a little bit more patience, empathy, and kindness.
So true. And that's why, again, I want to say to you all, this book is a resource for you. Maybe you are not personally going through bullying and discrimination, but you've heard of someone that you know and love who is, you know someone who can benefit from, or you just want to be able to have something to be able to have as a guide in case you're in a situation. That's why what Dawn Marie Westmoreland has done with this book is so important. So again, it's Stand Up to Workplace Bullying and Discrimination. If you guys are joining us on the Amazon side, you can get the Kindle edition there for only $9.99. The paperback, like I have here, is $12.99. It not only shares Dawn's own experiences, but she's able to give some great examples of things, again, that almost are ripped from the headlines, of things, different types of discrimination, where there is sexism, whether it has to do with racism. It's in situations for people who have disabilities. If you've seen discrimination and bullying there, she addresses that, but then she's able to give you some real practical tips and guidelines and resources for you to be able to use as well. And that's what makes this such a great thing. And what I love too, Dawn, is that, I love to write in stuff. So you've let it be known it's okay to write in this book. You give us space to do that. So talk to us about that. What do you want us to be able to take note of as we're reading the workbook, reading the book, and thinking about our own situations? Why do you want to leave that space to be able to write in?
I think it's important for people to be able to write notes as they're like, oh my God, for example, Cyrus, when I get clients that I've worked with on HR matters, I'll record it and I'll get them a book, workbook and such, but it can be so overwhelming because I have, 31 years experience and I can do this in my sleep and I can handle any EEO stuff. And the thing is they need to have that ability to write notes as they're going. Maybe they have a question, maybe have a, I want to find out more about this. So I think it's important to journalize because it also kind of anchors in your feelings and your thoughts.
So true. I love that. Don, when you finished writing the workbook and the book, stand up to workplace bullying and discrimination. How much of this was part of your own healing and therapy?
Oh my God. Well, I never hold back. As I said, I'm very transparent. I cried my eyes out when I wrote that
Hmm.
because, I took 2 years to write it. And the reason why I took 2 years, I was dealing with my mom's cancer. I had been in a bad accident, and which affected me, and so it dragged out a little longer. But see, I interviewed a lot of people. This isn't just about Dawn Westmoreland. This
Yeah.
is about other people who've dealt with racial discrimination. A little bit about their story and my suggestions, what could have been handled, differently and such. It was very cathartic. I'm glad I wrote it. It's okay to cry. I don't care if you're a man or woman.
Right.
All you're doing is expressing and letting go of that energy that you need to let go of.
So true. Sherry Marie, hello to you. Sherry says absolutely important. It's so true. And that's the thing. I love the fact that you done it's very easy. You could have just dealt with your own situation. And why I have such love and respect for you is because you're
Oh,
looking out for other people. And unfortunately, people need to know that there are people who have their back. Because not
oh,
everyone's strong enough to speak out for themselves. Not everyone is strong enough to say, this is wrong, or I shouldn't be going through this, or I shouldn't feel this way going into the workplace. But for you to be able to have the courage to be able to say, this is wrong, and this is what,
mhm.
what needs to be done, or this what needs to be addressed, and deal with the consequences of that, I should say, I think says a whole lot about you, and I think says a lot about our audience that is hearing this. Sherry also says crying heals, and that's totally so
Mhm.
true. So, what is your hope, Don? Because it is my hope that we're going to be able to give new life to the book now and bring new attention to it going into Prime Day. I'm excited to be helping spread the word about it. When people pick up, stand up to workplace bullying discrimination, what do you hope it does for them?
Okay, first of all, a lot of times people think it's just for employees, and I did really write it for employees, but I work with employers that want to deal with this issue, but
Okay.
they don't understand, how to document things. They don't understand the difference between bullying and discrimination. So I keep them out of hot water. And on the employee side, it is like a step by step by step. If this happens, do this, write this, examples of emails that you would send to a supervisor or HR. So it's to empower them, to educate them, to liberate them. Everybody I've ever worked with in the last, I think it's been now 11, 12 years, I'm losing track of when I started doing this kind of work, everyone I've worked with, I've been able to help. And the book just reinforces, it's backup of everything that I teach and talk about.
Yeah. Well, it's such an important conversation. I'm so glad to have you here. Again, everyone, Dawn Marie Westmoreland has been our guest. Stand Up to Workplace Bullying and Discrimination, available now on Amazon. Again, you can get the paperback like I have for only $12.99, or you can get the Kindle edition now for $9.99. Go ahead and add it to your Kindle, be able to download it on your phone. It is a great resource, not only for you, if you're not personally going through it, you may know someone who's going through some type of discrimination and bullying. It's a great resource for you to be able to share. And I must say, this is an important conversation for us to have because I think we can't stick our heads in the sand and pretend like it doesn't happen. Now, I'd never experienced it personally myself, but I think we all have witnessed or seen things that made us know, okay, that situation is not good, it's not healthy, and
Yep.
then letting us know the right way to handle it, Don. And that's why I appreciate you using what you've learned being on the human resources side of letting us know the proper way to do it. And I have to say, one of the big things that I got from the book that Don really stresses is documentation. Being able to write those dates down, write down as many details as you can. It's
Mhm.
so important. Anyone else who was involved, making sure you have those names. I think that is one of the big things that we don't always think about in the moment of it, Don. But I love the fact that you really stress that. So it's a very important thing. Don, I really enjoyed this conversation with you. It's hard to believe it's been half an hour already. But
Right.
but how can our audience stay connected with you?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm on LinkedIn under Dawn Marie Westmoreland, and I'm also well, it's probably the best thing to do is just go to LinkedIn, Dawn
Okay.
Marie Westmoreland. And it's like West for going west for more land because people are like, how do you spell Westmoreland? It's really easy, and
Yeah.
that way you'll see it's all there.
All right. Well, Don, congratulations to you again. Glad to help spread the word about the book and looking forward to our next chat together.
Yes, and Cyrus, I love you too. You're a very good person. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, I'm Cyrus Webb saying thanks so much for being with us. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.